Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. China has some rough words for the United States of America and calls the United States of America out on being the instigator in the Ukraine-Russia war. Now, I haven't heard this before from China, especially related to the current events in Ukraine. And this, I think, is really a turning point in China's statements and position, I think, vis-a-vis the Ukraine war, which means that it will say, okay, now I might even do it in front of everybody and support Russia directly. I think that Pelosi really hit a nerve somewhere. And not Pelosi, the United States, because they allowed Pelosi to fly over there in her sedated state that she is. So this article comes from Reuters, August 10, 2022. China calls US, and I'm quoting, main instigator of Ukraine crisis. What else you want? So it says, you're the guilty one. You are responsible. You're doing it. You're pushing the buttons. You're de-escalating. China, which Russia has sought as an ally since being cold-shouldered by the West over its invasion of Ukraine, has called the United States the main instigator of the crisis. Let's see. In an interview with the Russian state news agency TASS, published on Wednesday, China's ambassador to Moscow, Zhang Hanhui, accused Washington of backing Russia into a corner with repeated expansions of the NATO defense alliance. It's not a defense alliance, I'm telling you that. And support for forces seeking to align Ukraine with the European Union rather than Moscow. And I'm quoting, as the instigator and main instigator of the Ukrainian crisis, Washington, while imposing unprecedented comprehensive sanctions on Russia, continues to supply arms and military equipment to Ukraine. Zhang was, quote, saying, and I'm quoting again, their ultimate goal is to exhaust and crush Russia with a protracted war and cuddle of sanctions, end quote. The ambassador's reasoning closely followed Russia's own justification of its invasion of Ukraine. Maybe that's the right justification. Did you think about that? Some things that you might want to ignore. Reuters, right? Yeah. It follows closely on one of Russia's own justification of its invasion in Ukraine, which has resulted in thousands of deaths and devastation, blah, blah, blah. Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to Beijing in February to meet President Xi Jinping. Russia tanks were missing out of Ukraine borders, agreed that what both states held as a no-limit partnership superior to any Cold War alliance. Yeah, so they said that our partnership has no limits and we're ready. Are we okay? Yeah, let's go. So that's basically what it was. I failed to read here where Mr. Zhang Hanhui, the ambassador to Moscow, China's ambassador to Moscow, said that Washington backed Russia into a corner with repeated expansions of NATO defense alliance. I failed. This is what Reuters said. It's not what Zhang Hanhui said, defense alliance. So I'm still trying to see where Zhang Hui called NATO a defensive alliance. Maybe he did, but I'm looking. In the interview, Zhang said Sino-Russian relations had entered the best period in history, characterized by the highest level of mutual trust and highest degree of interaction and the greatest strategic importance, end quote. He railed against U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit last week to self-governing Taiwan, which China claims as its own. And said that and the United States were trying to apply the pressure on Russia and provoke major power rivalry and confrontation. and I'm quoting, "Non-intervention in international affairs is the most fundamental principle of maintaining peace and stability in the world, in our world," end quote, Zhang said. Well, we can interfere there, but they can't here. And obviously, that's the way it works here. Applying the principle to criticize Washington's Taiwan policy, but not Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He just explained to you, Reuters. Russia calls this invasion a special military operation and says it was necessary not only to maintain its own security, but also to protect Russians speaking from persecution. Is that correct? Is that? No? Okay. Ukraine and the West say there are baseless pretexts for an imperial war of aggression against a neighbor that gained independence, blah, 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 when the Moscow-led Soviet Ukraine broke in 1991. So they keep saying the same mantra of unprovoked and all that. And these guys can provide you with at least 5 factors that influenced the Russian decision to do that. I mean, we're not retards here. I mean, they think we are because, as I said before, they try to, being the mass media and their owners, they focus on the majority of the population, and the majority of the population has an IQ lower than 86. So they are technically and legally and scientifically retards. That's what it is. So then they look at the majority. Can we influence more people than a group? Yeah, they're going to be following us, and the rest stay there in the cold. We're going to take care of them like little by little. I mean, look what happened to Trump. FBI raided his house, former US president. Okay, well, if he committed a crime, if he's not committed a crime, if he is suspected of committing a crime and a warrant was signed by a judge and they can provide evidence that they find something and so on, that's fine. If they have reasonable doubt to go and check, that's fine. I'm for that. The problem is, I want the same scrutiny and same fairness and same justice applies to others, regardless what their names might be and so on. But the same here. We don't want anybody to get involved in our, internal affairs, elections and all that, which is fine. Nobody wants that. But it's okay when we do that. Because why? Because we're better. And we're going to show you how is the right way. We're going to spread democracy and freedom. Maybe they don't have those as values. Why do you think your values should be imposed on their society? I'm just saying, why not their values on us? Oh, we're going to have a philosophical discussion? Yeah, we can have it. And I think it's the basic human rights are valid, and freedom and democracy is discussable because it's different kind of democracies. If you have any kind of biped with half of brain being allowed to vote, then I don't think that works very nicely, because you have the mass media bombarding this guy with all that information, or that lady, not lady, you need to earn it, but that person with this kind of information, or even they're so educated. They're educated are the easiest way to propagandize. And it's not me saying that, there's a study saying that. There are books written about that. They are the easiest way. Not the tards, the pseudo intellectuals, the ones who graduate a college and they think they're intellectuals, and they don't read a book. And not only book, I think that if you read Wall Street Journal, honey, can you bring me the coffee? I'm reading a newspaper, Washington Post or Wall Street Journal. I'm an intellectual here. I'm involved in the fabric of the society and the political blah, blah, blah. Talk to them and see when they open their mouth how much they have in here. Not information. They might have information, but they don't know how to use it. That's the problem. That's the second step in intelligence. Not only memory. Memory is the basic. Yeah, you got memory, but then you have to know how to use it and how to come up with ideas, with conclusions. So here we go again with these guys. Chinese come forth and say, no, you are the instigator. You. I don't think the Americans care because they are ready for that. But the bottom feeders will not figure it out. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.